Dr. Rose Erin Vaughan is an experienced acupuncturist, yoga teacher, and physical anatomy specialist. She is the founder of Science of Self Yoga and Meridian Yoga Technique in New York City, and the author of 4 books on yoga and meridians. Her extensive training in a variety of modalities, sciences, and philosophies has helped her to establish a unique approach to teaching yoga and treating patients. She has led yoga teacher trainings, acupressure trainings, and anatomy trainings internationally. Rose Erin's career includes residency as a senior massage therapist and yoga instructor at the notable Duke University Integrative Medicine Clinic and Diet and Rehabilitation Center. She worked with doctors to treat a wide range of conditions, including arthritis, heart disease, cancer, obesity, eating disorders, sports-related injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and more. After working in massage therapy and yoga for years, she was drawn to the study of acupuncture. Rose Erin earned her doctoral degree in acupuncture from the Pacific College of Health Sciences. Yoga has been an integrative part of her life and healing philosophy. In 1996, Rose Erin began practicing yoga and meditation, which led her to complete yoga teacher trainings with Dharma Mittra, David Swenson, and Tim Miller. Since 2003, she has spent over 1,000 hours practicing directly with master teacher Dharma Mittra of New York City. She has also studied in-depth Tantra and Bhakti yoga with Bhagavan Das and others of that lineage. Dr. Rose Erin Vaughan's credentials go on and on and on. You're listening to Pure Yoga Talk from Austin, Texas, and I am your host, Jeff Chen, and I'm thrilled to be joined today with Dr. Rose Erin Vaughan. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
All right.
I'm excited to be here and talk about this energy anatomy and hot yoga.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you here. And I always like to start these yoga talks with your path, your yoga path, more specifically. So if you don't mind, Rose Erin, tell me about your first yoga class. Who was your first yoga teacher and why did you come back? What made you come back?
Well, my first yoga class ever was at the YMCA, actually. And I don't remember the teacher's name, but she was an older lady, probably in her 70s. And she told me that I was going to be good at yoga, which made me happy. And I remember doing child pose and I felt the energy lines. In the first time I did it, it was like this weird geometrical pattern emerged in my mind. And I said, this is really interesting. This is not just exercise. This is really interesting. So.
Oh, okay. And what year was that?
That was probably 1995.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is in the early days of yoga kind of blossoming into the mainstream, right?
Right. It was before there wasn't a lot of different styles, especially in North Carolina where I was living at the time. There weren't that many options for yoga. So I got lucky because I found an experienced teacher, this mysterious woman.
Sometimes it's better to be, to be lucky and to recognize those opportunities, right? When you see them, when they present themselves to you, the teacher arises, the teacher appears, right?
Yes.
And they set you on your path. So you've dived really deep into many different styles of yoga. I know from our experience with you, Ashtanga yoga, Dharma Mittra yoga, Bikram yoga, original hot yoga, those things. So tell us more about your yoga journey from 95 going on.
Yeah. I practiced various forms in the beginning. And I practice out of books a lot also because there just weren't that many opportunities at that time, or at least I wasn't aware of them. And so I was playing around with stuff on my own, and then I finally stumbled upon an Ashtanga community, um, and that was when it really grabbed me because I was a runner and a weightlifter, so I really liked working out hard. I was used to that kind of strong physical aspect, and I thought I would never stop running and lifting weights. I mean, I still lift weights, but I don't run anymore. But when I found Ashtanga, I had an injury and I couldn't run, so I was kind of desperate, and I found a really strong community. And that's what's beautiful about these different systems is that they develop communities like Ashtanga or original hot yoga. There's a strong sense of community around it, and then you get a collection of teachers rather than one specific teacher, guru, whatever. And so that's how I got into Ashtanga, and that gave me a strong understanding of the breath, I think, and of meditation, and the physical postures. Um, but then as I kept practicing into the second series, and then I was starting to learn the third series in Ashtanga, and I had moved to New York City, and I just there was just this moment where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do the same thing every day. I can't do it. My body, I didn't know what to do. And somehow at that very moment, a friend of mine was visiting New York City and was like, hey, I'm going to take you to Dharma Mittra. And I went to Dharma Mittra, and it was instantly just everything opened up. Very different, similar postures, but very different attitude toward the practice. That for me at that moment was great.
What
You
was that
know,
shift? What was the difference in the attitude towards the practice?
there was less rules. It was like Ashtanga is really good for developing discipline, but then that can go too far. I mean, it's always about balance. So if you go too far in terms of discipline and rules, then you become rigid. And so Dharma is like very playful and very much about the heart and devotion, which actually makes a lot of sense energetically now that I understand energy anatomy, why you can't force your body into these positions just by pure willpower. You have to soften, you have to surrender. And I think that is an emotional experience. You have to open your actual heart. You can't always do it military style. So you have to become vulnerable. And I think that's what shifted me in terms of that. But maybe a little bit too far. And I think the thing that really brought it back all together was the hot yoga sequence.
Wow.
So I can tell you lots more about that if you'd
When
like.
was your first hot yoga class?
Well, I was practicing at Dharma Mitra all the time, multiple times a day sometimes. And I noticed a lot of my friends were Bikram teachers, hot yoga teachers. And so they were like, come on, you should come to the hot yoga, whatever. And I did notice that they had the strongest practices. And so they were always the strongest and the most flexible. And I said, there must be something to it. And I went um, to class, and it was extremely hard. And I thought I was very advanced. I had, in the starting third series, Ashtanga, and I could do all these crazy poses in Dharma's class. And I can't do standing head to knee. It kind of made me mad that it was that hard and that I couldn't do it. But it challenged me. It was a whole different challenge, and I think I realized that that's exactly what I needed to do to pull myself back together and focus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, Marty, my wife, and I, we had taken a Dharma Mitra class, I'd say about 15, 18 years ago.
Hmm.
And a friend of ours invited us in to come in and take one of his, um, is it called a master class, or it was like it was a,
Mahasadhana, maybe.
yeah, it was one of the really advanced ones. And I think we spent half of the class in a forearm balance, some variation of a forearm stand, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, when is this? Like another one? Another one? Yeah. And so it just kept
Yeah.
going on and on. It was fascinating. And I remember his little dog running around,
Hmm.
and I mean, how cute. And he's just like, and people who have seen his little picture book, of the, what is it, 840 asanas or something,
Hmm.
and the Dharma Mitra headstand it's kind of inspiring to see somebody with that incredible, physical asana practice, but also have that heart and
All right.
devotion. It's really
Hmm.
a unique experience. It's burned and etched in my memory, for these last 15 years. Wonderful.
Hmm.
So that's a pretty wide variety of, of practices and experience. So
Hmm.
Bikram yoga. So you get into this and it's challenging, it's difficult. So let me kind of talk about the, kind of address the pink elephant in the room, right? So you're a doctor of acupuncture, and I can probably count on my hands, one hand, the number of TCMs that I have met over the last 20 plus years of practicing hot yoga who would actually advocate for hot yoga. But you're one of those, maybe two or three. So tell me what's the difference in the approach or the thinking or philosophy?
Well, I think in traditional Chinese medicine, uh, you're always moving toward balance. So I think the main objection that people or Chinese doctors, medicine doctors would have would be that just the heat would take you off balance, that much sweating. So it would create a deficiency in yin with some symptoms going along with it. It's mainly the heat and the sweating. It would be a problem. It would affect the kidney yin. Um, but I mean, I don't want to explain it in terms that won't make any sense. So it's got to do with heat and sweating
Okay.
being too much on a regular basis. Uh, but I think that what happened to me is, or what the way that I think we should look at anything in life is, if this is something that works, so many people benefit from it and they don't get bad symptoms. Instead, they heal, they cure diseases with this sequence in the heat. So it does work. It actually does work. It has far less side effects than the treatments that many of the treatments that people are using these days for common conditions. Um, so if it does work, then I want to look at it and understand how it works instead of just saying, well, that's not gonna work because of so and so philosophy that I have about the systems in the body, the physiology.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you can't be superstitious in your beliefs about any system, whether it's Chinese medicine or Western science or whatever you buy into. You have to look at reality. The reality is that people really benefit from that practice,
Yeah.
and they don't get injuries
Yeah. They
like they do
don't get
in many.
injuries, and they also
Yeah.
can heal and recover
Yes.
injuries, current or past.
Right. So yes, there could be some situations where certain people shouldn't be in that much heat. I mean, the times that I've seen people get problems with heat will be the teachers usually who are teaching a bunch of classes in one day for, 6, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And so then they can get some things that look like deficiencies. or certain people that already have certain deficiencies, like in menopause, when you suddenly your body is still trying to adapt to different rapid hormone changes, it can bring up some issues and be challenging. But as long as people stay hydrated and get enough minerals, I think that the benefits far outweigh any minor side effects that would arise. Yeah, so I feel very confident in telling people to do hot yoga. Anyone that has any kind of injury or is trying to recover from any kind of condition, really, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, weight management, knee injury, back injury, shoulder injury, whatever they have, any kind of chronic pain, just do hot yoga. You have to move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's music to my ears.
Yeah.
And so that goes back to a lot of your background. I mean, your extensive bio, you're a body worker, acupuncture, and some of the clinics that you worked in at Duke, and you're dealing with all kinds of chronic conditions, right? And chronic metabolic, cardiovascular, but also physical, musculoskeletal, right? I mean, your experience as body work, myofascial release, deep tissue, sports medicine, sports massage. So would you say that your path in is has really focused quite a bit on the physical aspects and injuries that people encounter? Is that fair to say?
Definitely. I'm obsessed with the idea of pain, chronic pain, what pain is, how people experience pain and injuries, where they really come from. I could take up 2 hours of your time talking about why the most common problem that people have, and even the reason people go to the doctor, is back pain, and it's not even serious. And the thing that kills people is cardiovascular disease, and those are both treatable. They're treatable through exercise and breathing in particular, which regulates the nervous system. So I'm interested in that, and I specialize in now in myofascial conditions, so chronic pain patterns in the body,
Oh,
muscle tension patterns that are almost never purely physical. There's always a psychological component, even if it arises, later after the injury. There's going to be breathing is an important part of treating any pain condition, because that's the first thing that happens when you have an injury or any kind of pain is your breath changes, your nervous system reacts to the pain. And that's what people suffer from, people suffer from those things. Pain in the body, or maybe psychological pain, or worst case, metabolic cardiovascular type issues.
so when you talk about myofascial conditions, we're talking about fascia, that wrap and thread throughout the entire body. And I know that more recently, anatomy has started to call fascia like its own organ, right? I think that I've heard that before. And tell us how meridians and fascia connect, if they do.
Yeah, they do. I think they do. I mean, this is very exciting development in science, because the more we scientists, I mean, look at fascia and understand its complexity, the more that energy anatomy in terms of the meridian system, or even the Nadi system, probably whatever system you want to call it, it makes more sense. It explains why it's true. And I'm interested in translating between those two languages, the language of science, where we look at the molecular structure of fascia and um, how it changes based on heat and hydration, but also the autonomic nervous system. Do you perceive that you're in a calm state, or do you feel threatened somewhere deep inside? Can you relax your mind, because that has an effect on your body and not just your muscles, but also the fascia. It's very complicated. The immune system is intertwined in it too. So you get all kinds of inflammatory processes, autoimmune conditions related to the fascia. Even now, they know that cancer is intertwined in fascia and connective tissue. So they're looking at that as a potential treatment. Stretching, sorry, as a potential treatment or therapy for inflammatory conditions and even cancer. But the meridian system, energy anatomy, is probably in the fascia. If it has a physical location, you're not going to see energy lines in a cadaver dissection. You won't be able to draw, outline them and stick a little pin in it and label, here's the stomach meridian. But you'll see the path of it in terms of the fascia, because the alignment of the fibers of collagen and the fascia, there's a lot of interesting videos were done by Thomas Myers. Do you know him?
No, I
He
don't.
was he was a student of Ida Rolf, who
Okay.
developed the system of Rolfing structural integration. He's amazing. His knowledge of the fascial system and his contributions in terms of dissecting and looking at the lines. And he didn't really study the meridian system, but his work really demonstrates these pathways that are very similar to the meridian system.
It
So
makes a lot of sense. We recently went to see Gil Hedley's Nerve Tour. Have you seen
yes.
that? All right.
No, but I know some of his work, and he's along the same lines. Fascinating
Yes.
person.
He's the
Yeah.
like the fascia guy. But what
Yeah.
was absolutely incredible was that this cadaver dissection, he called him Captain. He was a close friend of his. And
Wow.
yeah, very deep, very profound.
Mm.
And normally he's used to like dissecting layers because he was so interested in understanding fascia. And
Hmm.
so, but instead, this one was going different. He was like cutting in because he was taking out the nervous system
Mm.
and from the brain down to the brain stem, the whole spinal cord, and then every nerve out of that he could, cut into and show. It is one of the most amazing presentations that I've ever seen. He's an amazing storyteller. But what was fascinating to me was that you would see these nerve plexuses or plexi, however you might refer to it, and how they would weave in and out between the different layers of fascia.
Hmm.
And so there's a point where nerves come in and connect with fascia, and they sort of, unless you have a microscope, you're not going to look in to see where does it translate, where does it,
Hmm.
and out the other end comes out some more nerves and more fascia. And so these plexuses happen to line up with the chakra system. And
Yeah.
it's just like, wow, okay, here we go, we're looking at yoga right in front of our face, right, in a cadaver dissection. And so I feel like the fascia, the nervous system, and as you said, the autonomic nervous system, everything is now like finally being seen as connected.
Hmm.
But the science is starting to support.
Yes, it's so exciting. And it's been happening maybe not that long, maybe 20 years, maybe a little longer. Some people were probably ahead of their time, but it's fairly new, all of that. The microscopic ability or interest in looking at the fascia on the microscopic level and how it's aligned and what's really happening in there is it's really important. And that's, I believe that's the main of we're probably targeting two main organs in hatha yoga practice, which is the nervous system and the fascial system. And that's energy anatomy right there.
Oh. But
Yeah.
you mentioned previously the nadis, right, in the yoga systems, right, versus meridians. You consider them, kind of related, interchangeable? What's your view?
That's a really good question. Well, I originally wanted to learn the Nadi system. I was actually with Dharma Mittra, and he's kind of a scary person to approach and talk to, but um, I got the courage and I said, Dharma, I want to learn the Nadi system. And he just kind of he was like, well, you should read Shivananda's book or whatever. And so I was like, well, I guess that was a stupid question. I guess I'm not going to learn the energy anatomy. And but I did read, I found actually a lot of good information with Iyengar. So I never met Iyengar, but I read a lot. I read his books and they're very good. But I didn't feel like there was that much information on the Nadi system. So then when I had already become interested in learning the Meridian system, because I studied trigger points, which is also a myofascial system that the Travell and Simmons developed way back probably in the 60s, 70s maybe. And I knew that there was something, somehow the trigger points were related to the meridian system. I had started to get acupuncture and I was like, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
And Chinese medicine has it all mapped out better than Travell and Simmons because they've been doing it for thousands of years. So I got really excited about learning the meridian system. And then I finally went to acupuncture school, and that blew me away to learn that. But I think the Nadi system and the meridian system are definitely not the same. If the little that I do know of the Nadis, and Iyengar describes 12 of them, I think, in detail, but not that much detail. And then there's the three main nadis that most people that teach yoga know about, the three central channels, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. And so they're not like the 12 meridian system, but there's a whole other set of meridians, which are called the extraordinary vessels sometimes. And those are more similar. So there's two sets of meridians. One set of meridians is starts when you're born and you take your first breath. So those are physiological, emotional, processing energy. And then there's the extraordinary system, which is 8 channels that are there as soon as you're formed in the womb, or they start with the first division of the cell, before the first division of the first cell, because there's a polarity. So you have a top of the egg and a bottom of the egg, or fertilized egg. And that's already the beginning of the energy system right there. So that is more similar to the nadis, that original pre-breathing, pre-birth. So I sometimes call those the spiritual vessels because they're more related to the nadis. Yeah, they're not exactly the same, but what I like to say is that what's real is the human experience, right? You can overlay these different systems, whether it's Western science, anatomy, the Nadi system, the meridian system. These are lenses to look at reality. What's real, what's actually true, what's actually happening is the human experience, is the body. So we're still developing it. And that's my philosophy in teaching also. And that was my teacher's philosophy, is that we don't even know where the meridians are exactly. Right? I can say this is where the stomach meridian is, or the kidney meridian, but you have to go and see if that's where it really is. based on your experience.
On your experience. Yeah.
And maybe it's not, maybe it's a little bit different.
Yeah. That
Science.
that is what I really took away from our experience with you um, in your weekend workshop that we hosted you for here in Austin. And it was really about our own self experience, our own experience and what we took from it. It was really hard when people asked me about what I got out of the weekend, I said, I really can't tell you because it was my own experience and I felt energy differently in the postures that I was performing. And I started to some things started to change, when I put my thought into a different energy line. Right. So
Yes.
and that was really my experience. And so just really going into diving deeper into this subject, I think is something that would be really worth exploring as
Yes.
a practitioner of original hot yoga and also as a teacher and a studio owner. I think this is like incredible information that we all need. So, my
Yes,
two
I think
cents.
so. Just to look in and be the scientist of yourself.
Yes. Love that.
That's
Science of self. I'm glad you said that, right? So science of self, that is you're a self-published author. I've seen some of your books. You've got at least 4 books out there on Amazon, and it's amazing to see, first off, to see yoga poses and asanas done with such proficiency. That's number one. And then also to see all of the meridian energy lines like drawn out and layered over. I mean, that just goes to show who you are, like an accomplished yoga practitioner, scientist, and then now layering meridian lines on top of poses. Um, and that was what I saw was most prominent in all of your works there, your books. But tell me more
pictures.
about Science of Self.
Well, with the books, I think the pictures are the most important part. I mean, I made it that way on purpose. I wanted it to be a book that kids would like too, or the child in all of us would like, because it's it's not about memorizing facts and learning facts. It's about visualizing and sensing. We have to use our imagination in some sense to visualize the lines during the practice. So the imagery is more important than the words, I think. Words can just help us create um, an image of what it is that's happening inside ourselves. That is very important skill to develop. Um, and so the science of self to me is ultimately about letting go of all the systems. So you can memorize the entire meridian system. And I know a lot of people that passed the exam, did really well on memorizing all of the information, but can you feel it in your body? Is it embodied? Um, because otherwise it's useless. So your body is the laboratory. You're a scientist, a real scientist. I studied science before I studied body work. I was going to be a scientist, a cell biologist. So a real scientist has to be completely objective. You're supposed to be.
Right.
And so this is a very good skill to develop in healing and in meditation, is step outside of yourself, right? If you've ever been to therapy, you surely know this. Step outside of yourself, observe yourself from the outside. So you were just the one exploring. Your body is your teacher. What do you feel in your right little toe? What do you feel on the left inner kneecap? What do you feel deep inside your abdomen? Can you sense where your kidney is? Your right adrenal gland? You're the top of your left lung. Are you able to sense those areas and gather information? So the nervous system, including the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system also are gathering information on this kind of subconscious level, but we have a whole system of proprioceptive nerves in all of our joints, ligaments, muscles, who knows, probably more than we realize. That's just sending constant flow of information to our brain, and we mostly tune it out, which is fine. But then can you go in and pay attention to all those little subtle, tiny little sensations without interpreting them as a threat or pain that you should, back away from?
An SOS, or Science of Self master class. What is in a Science of
Mhm.
Self master class?
Well, that's an asana sequence, um, where I use a lot of postures from Ashtanga and the original hot sequence, and also Dharma Mittra. Um, and it's kind of woven together in a way that gradually goes through the layers of the body and takes you a little bit deeper into the energy body by the end. Um, that sort of developed organically over a couple of years, and now we've been practicing it and teaching other people to teach it. In my mind, the master class includes 1 hour of pranayama and meditation, but uh, that doesn't usually happen unless we're doing a teacher training or something. So in my mind, it should be 3 hours of
Okay.
practice.
Wow.
And because the pranayama is really important, to take your awareness deeper, right? You have to calm and balance the nervous system, before you can be able to pay attention to the sensations inside your body without being threatened by them, I think. And uh, but that sequence is, you know, it sounds like a really advanced sequence, but I think anyone could come to that class. We try to make it accessible to different levels of people. Maybe not fresh new beginners.
Yeah.
They should do hot yoga for a couple of years, and then if they want to explore and learn it might be similar to the advanced hot yoga
Oh,
sequence.
is that right? Okay.
In some way, I think that sequence is actually much harder,
You think so? It is,
and
it is humbling, right? It is
it's so
absolutely
humbling.
humbling. Yeah. And you add heat to it and you're like, wow, can I survive this 2 hour, experience? And just surviving that is an accomplishment, right?
It's so awesome. I love the hot yoga sequence. I love the original hot yoga sequence and the advanced one because they're kind of fearless.
Yes.
But just go for it. Just do it. Look at
Yeah.
yourself in the mirror. Stand here in the heat. Endure this and then reap the benefits.
Yep. You'll come outside the other side of it in a better way, right? In a better person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that Science of Self, the master class. I love how it draws from all these various modalities, and that's like it sounds to me like that's like the compilation of all of your work in a way, in a physical asana practice, right? Maybe it's an amalgamation of all the things that you've learned over the decades.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I practice it every day. Maybe there's a few days where I don't do it, but I mostly do that same sequence every single day. I kind of built myself a whole new system to be stuck in. Maybe one day I'll break out of it. But I like it. I enjoy it. It has some good variations, and
How
it's
does
not
one
too
how does
not too
one find
rigid.
it? Is it online? Is it do you do them virtually?
Not anymore. I did a bunch of virtual classes during the pandemic, but there's a lot of versions of it on YouTube
Oh, okay.
that could be found under Science of Self Yoga, should you dare.
All right. And so you probably do workshops, Science of Self workshops. And I've seen on your site there's meridian therapy, right?
Mhm.
Yin yoga, and then the science of self, the master class,
Mhm.
other, so you're also very much into yin yoga, right?
Mhm.
Opposite
Yeah,
side
I
of
think the yin yoga is in my version of yin yoga anyway,
it.
is is actually really hard
Okay.
because we do a lot of vinyasa warm up in the beginning. There's a lot of s- movements that most people would consider not yin at all. But then we hold the poses a long time, and that's the yin part. So that's the second half of class is where you go deeper into the poses and really affect the fascia. I mean, the you have to hold the poses longer. That's the other thing. Um, but the heat helps with that. So if you have, this is the beauty of heat. If you have heat in a class, then you're softening the fascia. Were you going to ask me that question later, or can I tell that now?
You can talk it now. Since you're on the
So
subject.
yeah, so the fascia is wrapping around the muscles. So if you have the problem that most people encounter is that they have tight muscles in various parts of their body based on their movement patterns, their psychological patterns, their whatever habitual posture. And um, they're like that for a long time. So the fascia, the muscle is contracted, yes, but the fascia around the muscle, which is like a plastic wrap, like if you had a clear plastic wrap around the muscle, sort of. Uh, so if a muscle stays contracted, shortened for a long time, then the fascia shortens also. And then you can't relax the muscle because the fascia is constricting the muscle. So where is it going to go? How is it going to even get longer? And it has to relax, right? You can't really stretch muscles, but you can relax them and they lengthen. It's like a little electrical machine, a muscle is. But the fascia is different. You can't say, I'm going to contract my fascia and then I'm going to relax it. It doesn't work on a conscious level. So, in order to stretch the fascia, which would be like the plastic wrap around the muscle, you either have to melt it a little bit, which you can do in hot yoga, right? In a room like that, or if you do a lot of warm ups, that might also help. But the hot yoga is very efficient and effective at softening the fascia. Then if you relax the muscle, it has somewhere to go.
See.
So in right, so that's the real power of the heat that I think is very beneficial in getting people to open up. It's not that you're more able to relax in the heat, and I think there are some studies that show that your muscles get stronger actually in the heat.
Is that right?
Um, yeah, I found a study on that. But anyway, it's it helps you efficiently within 1 hour or 90 minutes be able to unlock muscles that may have been contracted for a really long time. Whereas normally, so in my yin classes, we don't use heat and we just stay in the pose a really long time, which is similar because then if you stay a long time, the fascia will start to lengthen. It takes 3 to 5 minutes, but sometimes we hold the poses for 10 minutes, like pigeon pose or something like that. And so that then the fascia is lengthening and then the muscle can relax. And I like to hold the poses long in some cases just because of the meditative factor. It's really more about a exploration of your mind and your reactions to different sensations.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always understood yin yoga to be in a non-heated environment so that really the connective tissue it's working the connective tissue rather than the muscle, right? From my simple
Mhm.
understanding. And however, I love heat and I love holding poses in a heated room for a long time. I think that there's a lot of benefit to that as well. Um, and so maybe that's counter to the kind of the yin yoga philosophy. Is that Is that right? Usually it's a
Well,
non-heated room.
it's the same effect. It's just more
Mhm.
efficient. I mean, hot yoga is more efficient at softening and lengthening the fascia.
Yeah.
You don't have to lay there for 10 minutes if it's already melted.
Yeah.
You know, your IT band is literally slightly melted. It's more stretchable in the heat and or whatever part, whatever fascia. So I don't there's no difference in terms of fascia. The difference with yin yoga is that you have to sit there and meditate longer in one position. To me, that's more of a psychological factor than a fascial thing. If you just want to lengthen your fascia, do hot yoga. And that I can't emphasize how great that sequence is, the original hot yoga sequence, because even in some yin, I see people doing yin poses where they hold certain stretches for a really long time. And that can be actually dangerous because when you lengthen fascia, like people want to stretch their upper back or something, and those are fascia that are already usually over lengthened. And you don't want to keep stretching and lengthening fascia that's already too long.
Yeah.
So I try to avoid those. You want to stretch and lengthen fascia that's typically short and tight, like the IT band or something along those lines. The sides of the body are usually constricted. Not the back is usually rounded forward. Maybe you open the front. But anyway, um, that sequence, the hot yoga sequence is just it's just perfect. It's very safe and it opens the right fascia, the right energy lines.
Tell us about the energy lines and the energy anatomy of the original hot yoga, also known as Bikram yoga sequence.
Yeah. Um, I have to mention the three axis of the body briefly
Okay.
because while there's 12 energy lines, there's three groups. You have the emotional axis, the physical axis, and the spiritual axis. So the emotional axis involves the lines that are named liver, gallbladder, pericardium, and triple heater. And you don't want to get hung up on the names because they are related to those organs, but they spread throughout the whole body, right? They cover large areas of the body fascially. They're not restricted to the organ location. So the emotional axis is one that responds, I think, immediately to our emotions, sort of superficial emotions also, and to emotional repression, to the breath. It's sort of like our immediate defenses, um, and reactions to our inner emotions. And that axis of the body uh, needs to be usually stretched. So that would even really be the fascial system if you were going to narrow it down to one axis, the emotional axis. So stretching, deep breathing, releasing. Think of releasing tension in the body, releasing muscle tension. Um, or even things like walking, things that are rhythmic and gentle would benefit the emotional axis. And certainly the hot yoga sequence does do that. I mean, it addresses it from the first moment with the pranayama, the first breathing, and you're getting the intercostal muscles and a whole bunch of the um, accessory breathing muscles are addressed in that very first sprint. Of course, the throat.
Yeah.
So so
There's a lot
intense.
going on in that breathing exercise. There's so much going
Yes.
on, right?
Yeah, the diaphragm, that every single breathing muscle is addressed. So you're releasing this kind of superficial emotional tension and holding right from the start. And I love that. And then you have, I could go on and on about that, but then you have the physical axis of the body, which is the stomach, spleen, lung, large intestine. And that really has to do with building the physical body, the tissues of the body, muscle strength, but also metabolism. So it's good if you consider that in weight management and metabolic type of conditions. And also the integrity and the stability of the physical body. So it's really like how strong is the tissue of the body? How much heat do you have in your body? To oversimplify it anyway. And so the hot sequence definitely is working on that level. I mean, maybe it's focusing more on that level than anything else, which is important. It also relates to purification. So getting junk out of your body, right?
Yeah.
Getting junk out of your lungs and out of your digestive tract, which are kind of clogging you up and creating mucus and phlegm. So you're addressing that, but you're creating many of the postures are really strong, like squeeze, burn, squeeze your legs together without talking about the bandhas,
Yeah.
the energy locks. You're doing the bandhas in the hot yoga sequence. So you don't have to name it that, but you're really creating stability and integrity. That's what I most benefited from when I started doing it, because I was overstretched and I needed to pull it back together and get grounded and stable. Learn how to stand on your feet before you go any further. So I think the hot yoga sequence is very powerful in that way, and in that way heals a lot of diseases. Could
Good.
cure. I mean, I've seen people cure diabetes from hot yoga.
Oh yeah. So have we. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
A
that's
lot.
that's incredible.
Uh-huh. High
And no
blood
side
pressure.
effects. There's
Yeah.
no side effects.
Yep. High blood pressure,
Yes,
insulin resistance,
yes,
is magic.
yes. Yeah, and then the third axis is the spiritual axis, and that's involving the bladder, kidney, urinary bladder, kidney, heart, small intestine. Again, don't get hung up on those organ names. But that has to do with consciousness, focus, willpower, the nervous system, the endocrine system, like the really deep energy of the body. It also has to do with aging, and reproduction. So these are, but also trauma and shock can affect it. So it can create tension in the body, but on a really deep level. It is affecting more the bones. So I think the hot yoga sequence definitely affects that as well. I mean, it gives you a chance to stare at yourself in the mirror, which is profound, which is a profound spiritual practice. I mean, I think some people have a misconception that looking in the mirror is somehow like superficial,
Yeah. Or
but
egotistical in a way, right?
it's so
Egoist.
not. I mean,
It's not.
you go in a class without mirrors, and most people are looking at other people, and then in their mind they're criticizing or comparing or something like that. So their focus is also external, but not even on themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
It's
if you
on
go in
others.
front
And
of,
it's also a way to hide in a way, right? It's a way to hide.
yeah, you can't hide in a mirror. So you're forced to start to look at yourself, even if it's an external view like that. I think it's really profound, and in terms of energy anatomy, that's all about the heart. I mean, your eyes, your gaze is directly connected to the heart, and you're looking at your own spirit in your eyes in the mirror. That's amazing. That's deep. And then obviously there's willpower and developing discipline and willpower. And some of the poses like shavasana, where it's you get a good chance. I mean, they don't skip shavasana in hot yoga.
Yep.
It's a chance to rest, restore, and that's getting you deeper into your spiritual axis.
Yeah,
So I love it.
it's an absolutely complete system, from my experience. And what I love is that in your speak, you can put the words to it, right? In this, and the emotional axis, the physical axis, the spiritual axis, and relate it to, acupuncture and meridians, and you can just see from your discussion how, the original hot yoga sequence really hits all of the main points of
Mhm.
health, right? Emotional, physical, spiritual, all those wonderful things. So I agree. I think we agree it's a really great system. What other things about energy anatomy do you think are important for a hot yoga practitioner to know?
Hmm. Well, I think it's just important to know, uh, it's like there's no rules, except to look inside. But fingers, toes, eyes. So the energy lines go to the fingers, the tips of the fingers or by the fingernails. The same in the toes. They also go a lot into your eyes, into your, ears, face. So these are things that are often neglected in the practice. I think that very small, subtle things like extending through your index fingers and second toe in standing bow, for example, or paying attention to your ring finger and your ears in preparation for eagle or in full locust as you're reaching out. If you understand the energy lines, you can get some insight, maybe, without changing the sequence, without changing the practice at all. You can have some insight into, um, deeper opening, perhaps, or just saying, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize that I was contracting that part of my body, and now I can feel it because I feel this line running through that point." Um, but also the organ, try to learn a little bit of anatomy, like learn where your liver is, find out about your pancreas and your kidneys and your intestines, like poke around in your abdomen a little bit and learn where your lungs are. I think it's interesting. Most people think their lungs are lower down and they're actually like way up here. And so if you can learn a little bit of anatomy, just a little bit, look at some pictures, and then you'll be able to pay attention more and slowly develop an awareness of moving from, when you do camel, what's happening to your lungs? What's happening to your heart or your intestines, instead of just, what, I can't reach my heels, or am I going to die in this pose?
Right.
Why, like, I can't breathe. You can pay attention to something deeper, but also the fingers, toes, face, eyes. Yeah.
I remember in your weekend workshop, the emphasis on the fingers, the toes, the inner ankle bone, right? Also the neck and the jaw. So much going on
Mhm.
here, right? And also
Yes.
these little these little muscles back here behind the just below the
Behind the
earlobes,
jaw. Yeah.
behind the jaw. Wow, it was wonderful. And my take from the workshop was, as you were going through the different meridians in and the various poses, I was just like, you were showing us very key some keys along, some key trigger points or acupressure points
Mhm.
along the way. And I'm just poking and prodding with myself, and I'm kind of feeling, oh, there's one that just sort of lit up, right? Oh, and then
Mhm.
so you can find, as you're kind of working down those meridian lines, where something might give you some feedback. And
Yes.
yeah, and I think that was a great, sort of point in the workshop, is like, what do you feel? What are you experiencing? And after that first day of poking and doing the class and listening to the different options and opportunities to sense during a class, that evening I had the best sleep in maybe 6 months. I wear this little
Wow.
aura ring, and it gave me my highest sleep score ever. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
whoa. I was like so
That's that's
relaxed.
solid evidence right
That's
there.
pretty evidence. That was what I got. I got a great night's sleep, the best
Yeah.
night's sleep ever. And also I've had this little recent knee kind of injury, and I found some energy releases that helped me kind of improve my range of motion. And just literally in one weekend, I went from, here to here in my range of
Mhm.
motion. And it's like, I don't think it's not a coincidence. And I think being more self-aware was really what I felt, what was empowering from that
Good. And
workshop.
I think, yeah, I think with pain, especially chronic pain, there's fear around movement.
Yeah.
And that's what limits people from fully recovering is a little bit of fear. And I think that the understanding energy anatomy can really help. Um, if you have a different view of the body, and as much as I don't want people to memorize a system and become imprisoned by a whole new system now.
Yeah.
So I do emphasize like not being attached to the system, but it is so powerful. It is so interesting. And all of the little points, the acupressure points, um, they're like magic. They were a gift given to us by some yogis thousands of years ago who developed these systems. And just like you were saying, the throat, there's so much happening in your throat. Physical anatomy, very complicated, but also the energy anatomy. There's so many pathways. And
Yeah.
just knowing like a couple of points, like here or down behind the collarbones. Um, there's a bunch of points in the neck, but uh, it can it can just magically suddenly change uh, your practice or your posture.
I think I recall from the workshops, the standing bow pulling pose and the camel pose, but especially the standing bow pulling pose is I think, such a signature hot yoga pose. There is so much going on there, and
Mhm.
it really hits and penetrates, really activates, enervates all the energy lines practically, right?
Yep.
With all of it, it's such a complex, beautiful posture, right? And I know
Yeah.
seeing your pictures of you doing it, it's like amazing to see. Right? So tell us about that posture.
Oh, standing bow.
Standing
Yeah,
bow.
it does. It covers everything. I mean, when I was developing these different sequences for the different meridians, I was like, well, we can use standing bow in this sequence and we can use it in this one. We can put standing bow in every single sequence because it's good for everything.
Yeah.
Um, so it's stretching in your arms, you have a twist in your thoracic spine. And but it's really a fascial stretch in the arms, in your back arm particularly. That's the large intestine meridian. So you're getting this stretch all the way from your fingers of your backhand up through your biceps, deltoid, across the throat. And this is some really interesting fascia in the neck and throat, and also the platysma muscle. So if you understand the anatomy, I mean, it's really complicated, but that's also the brachial plexus and the nerves coming out of the side of your neck. And like you were talking about the fascia wrapping around the nerves and everything, all the way is connected, like all the way from your face, your jaw, down into your hand. And so you're able to um, access that pathway without compressing your neck. If you just try to stretch your neck, nothing happens. But if you've got that traction on your arm because you're kicking, then you're really getting into the fascia, and hopefully you're breathing into it. And that's just the back arm. You know, you're also opening the chest, the diaphragm, the heart muscle, the heart meridian, the and you're activating the front leg, you're activating the front arm, sorry. You're activating the standing leg. That's strengthening. I think I talk about the big toe, the arch of the foot, and all of that is the spleen,
Mhm.
pancreas line. So you're building integrity in the foot, knee, everything, the whole body is strengthening, and you're stretching, you're kicking, you're opening the hip flexors, the whole front of the body on the other side, stomach meridian, you're activating the back line, bladder meridian. You're doing everything,
Doing everything. Yeah.
everything.
Everything. Yeah. And it's
Very
it's
hard.
very hard. And that's what's beautiful about sequence. We're building up, we're warming up, we're building up. And after 25 minutes, our body's ready to do like a standing head to knee pose and a standing bow pulling pose. And we're at our probably our peak feeling of strength. And
Right.
we're warmed up. Our the fascia is nice and the connective tissue is nice and heated up and loose. And we can give it all we've got at that point for those
Mhm.
two very, very difficult signature postures. And so sequencing wise, it's absolutely incredible.
Oh, it's brilliant. The more you apply energy anatomy to it, the more layers of brilliance are revealed from that sequence. You know, it's also awesome that you get to do it twice. You do
Yeah,
the postures twice. You don't see that in most sequences.
right.
And that's very interesting too in the practice, I think. So
Yeah, the difference between first and second, right? You kind of create a little bit of, muscle memory. You're kind of breaking through some connective tissue, and then you're creating a new normal, right? You're helping in that second set to kind of
yes.
reset, where your body can be tomorrow. Right?
Yeah. And I'm interested in sort of working with the traditional dialogue in the first set and then playing around with looking at energy anatomy in the second set. I'm
Yeah,
working, that's my current project.
I can't wait for that. And I know there was like maybe some hints of it in the workshop, but I'd love to see like the full blown, Dr. Rose Erin Vaughan version of that, and to really see how it can integrate. So I'm looking forward to that. So from my experience with original hot yoga, and hosting teacher trainings and assisting in other teacher trainings, I strongly believe that this type of information, this type of work in energy anatomy would be really valuable for really any teacher, but especially some experienced teachers to help them inform them about their own practice, but also other techniques in adding to their current classes. I think this is great for students who've been doing this for a while so that they can start to look a little bit more inward and look in to see what they feel, and it might deepen their it should deepen their practice, and it should deepen their understanding of this practice and create more of a longevity in their practice. So
Mm.
I can't recommend this enough. I'm looking forward to your original hot yoga class where you have that first set of the dialogue instruction and your second set with your energy anatomy layering and how you would instruct that class based on energy anatomy. I'm really looking forward to that. I know that's under development. And coursework, I think is it sounds like you're writing a book, right? And coursework. Can you tell us more about that and what your outlook is there?
Yeah, we're making a book with all the poses and the lines drawn on the poses again with some muscles and some organs drawn into the images. So there's some good visuals and text explaining, sort of the energy anatomy of each pose. And we'll be hopefully developing soon the video course so people can get a taste of that type of class or that type of experience of the energy anatomy cues. Not that we're changing the sequence at all, but we're just in the second set maybe adding some new dialogue um, to give people inspiration. I think staying really deeply interested in the practice is is allows you to open up new layers and not just be in your same old routine if you've been practicing one sequence for a long time. It can give you some new inspiration and new insights. And as a teacher, I think that using the lens of energy anatomy can help you see your students in a different way too. So you can see different levels of different layers of alignment, um, and without even using that type of language with your students, you would maybe have a different insight into what is holding them back, or where they can go a little bit further, or maybe relax also. Um, so that, and we're hopefully also developing uh, a little bit longer in-person training, um, where we can share knowledge. I mean, I learned so much from teaching to people and their questions that come up in class. So I really enjoy sharing that in person as well. Um, Going through the sequence, breaking it down pose by pose, and looking at the anatomy.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there's no substitute for in person. That's my opinion. I love experiencing the teachings, just in that intimate environment in a classroom setting, and having that be that organic exchange.
mhm.
But of course, we'll settle for video coursework if that's what it comes out to be. But we'd look forward to having you back here in Austin, and when you launch any of this new material, be happy to be the first to host you here.
Thank you. And you really inspired me to go deeper into this work. It had been an idea in my mind for a long time. And certainly I use some of the hot yoga poses in the master sequence that I teach all the time. So I had applied it to those, and then I got really inspired by you guys
Awesome.
to just fully commit to it, and it's been amazing
Cool.
to be able to do that. So thank you.
All right. Well, inspiration goes all around. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dr. Rose Erin Vaughan. Appreciate your
Yeah.
time
Marty.
with us today. And we'll see you real soon.
All right.
All right.